That's going to be a point of this. Nikkei coming down. We've already seen the IMF cut its global outlook. We've seen the WTO say now it expects global commerce to actually contract this year. So the impact is real. I think we definitely will see the BOJ trim some of those forecasts. But the bigger question is, what does Ueda say about the outlook for inflation? We will be watching to see if he makes any comments about when he expects underlying inflation trends to reach the BOJ's target. And up until now, he's talked about the October-March period ending in March 2027. We'll see if he sticks with that or if he pushes it out a little bit.
Given that we have seen the latest CPI numbers, like Tokyo inflation just jump by the most in 2 years or so, food prices also soaring.
Yes, it creates a risk for the BOJ. Remember that some of these underlying pressures are coming from structural changes in the economy. There's a very tight labor market that's forcing companies to push up wages in order to retain workers or hire new ones. And Ueda is very much aware of this, and he's talked about it in the past. Food prices, of course, are still very high and creating a lot of pressure for households. So he may find himself in a position where he does have to talk about proceeding with normalization of policy. But he probably will hedge his comments somewhat.
Bloomberg Senior Editor Brian Fowler there on BOJ decision day. Take a look at how futures in Europe are opening up at the moment. We see, of course, European stocks had gained for a seventh day amid a flurry of earnings, 7 consecutive sessions trading higher. They're up by just about 0.5% when it comes to the Euro 600 index there. At the moment, we're seeing a little bit more of a muted picture there. Euro Stoxx 50 futures off by about 0.3%. A little bit of positivity over there in Germany. We did see leadership across telecoms, media stocks, miners and underperforming. Some of those disappointing earnings from Banco Santander there weighing. But of course, geopolitics is also front and center for the region because Bloomberg has learned that the US and Ukraine have reached a deal over access to the war-torn nation's natural resources. Kyiv is hoping that the agreement will secure President Trump's support in ceasefire talks with Russia. For more, our Bloomberg News editor John Harney joins us. And John, how much does this progress the ceasefire efforts and garnering Washington's support, given that we know that on the Russian side, Vladimir Putin might be expecting fairly different contours when it comes to what a potential peace agreement looks like?
Well, the eventual agreement, if and when it occurs, is still in the future. It's still very amorphous at this point. But this agreement does goodwill between the and the Ukraine, and both sides apparently were very keen to establish, or very, very, very keen to have, given President Trump's skepticism of the U.S. assistance to Ukraine since the Russian invasion began, and in particular criticism of President Zelensky of Ukraine. And of course, as you said, there were fears, or as you suggested, there were fears that the U.S. might walk away from a ceasefire talks involving Russia if this agreement, which President Trump mentioned just now in the town hall, he discussed with Zelensky at the Vatican during when they were both there for Pope Francis's funeral. So this agreement really reassures both sides, Ukraine and the U.S.
At the same time, we're hearing that a paper with some trade proposals is set to be presented by the EU to the US imminently. It's interesting, right, because we've seen sort of mostly Asian trading partners getting a head start on these talks. Does this kick off negotiations between the EU and the US?
Well, those talks have not yielded much, if any, progress so far. The Europeans apparently are going to propose bolstering investment by European companies in the United States, as well as a pledge to buy American goods, involving technology, as well as liquefied natural gas. At the same time, however, the EU is preparing retaliatory measures to counter the tariff that Trump has already imposed. And it's Liberation Day this month, rather.
Bloomberg News editor John Harney. We're just hearing from President Trump at the moment, speaking during the News Nation town hall interview, talking about trade talks with China, saying that there's a very good chance we'll make a deal with China, but that any deal with China has got to be on our terms. And of course, really reflecting the rhetoric that's come from the president, that's come from the likes of the Treasury Secretary, saying that Beijing has to make the first move. Of course, all the signaling we've seen from the Chinese side is that there's not much willingness for compromise, and in fact, they're sort of focusing more on the diplomatic outreach to other trading partners instead. We do have much more ahead on the Asia trade. This is Bloomberg.
I'm David Weston. Join me for the next generation of Wall Street Week. This week, Larry Summers on Fed independence as we head into FOMC meetings. What exactly is President Trump trying to accomplish with these tariffs he loves so much? Vanguard celebrates the 50th anniversary of its first fund.
They created indexing for the individual investor.
And we go to Seoul to take a look at efforts to reverse a population decline. Watch the all-new Wall Street Week. More than what you need to know, it's what you need to think about.
Asia is a continent of contrast. The region is a nexus of rich cultural traditions, a vibrant hub of trailblazing innovation and modernity. How will it push the limits of technology even further?
Going to space should become as easy as, taking a flight.
If NASA is designing a lander, their approach is they're designing a Formula One car. So we take, say, a Jeep approach.
Min-Seok, give us a sense of how you translate Korean architecture for the rest of the world.
We call this madang. In general terms, it's where we can be ourselves, where we belong.
There is an old saying in Korea that says, "Call me blue, hwa이 불치." It means simple but not humble. So it has a tremendous impact on Korean architecture.
People tend to think the robot AI taking the job from them. We want to use the robot as a basic asset. People come through the robot.
From space tech in India to robotics in Japan, Asia is driving the future, reshaping industries, societies, and the way we live. Join me as I take you through the bold innovations. Discover Asia's next-gen technologies on Momentum.
You're watching the Asia trade. UBS CEO Sergio Martin thinks investors may slow down investment plans if uncertainty due to tariffs continues for too long. His warning came as the bank's markets unit posted a record performance as traders cashed in on geopolitical turmoil and market volatility.
When you look at wealth management, asset management, and investment, both delivered double-digit pre-tax profit expansion. Our core businesses had a combined 15% expansion. So I think that, of course, we saw a little bit of seasonality, positive seasonality, particularly in the first few weeks of January. I think it's fair to say that afterwards, the factors were out and a high level of uncertainty and volatility. The most important issue is that if you go back in history, you can see how we have performed in a variety of market conditions.
Wealth management, clearly the biggest profit driver, as it has been for a long time. For UBS, how are your clients within wealth adjusting to the market turmoil, the political uncertainty? Are they staying on the sidelines? Are they looking for different products, different asset classes?
Well, you look at So far, we haven't really seen a major shift in asset allocation by clients. And when you look at first quarter and the first couple of weeks in April, they took more advantage of market volatility to reposition their exposures within the already set asset allocation. When you look at the last couple of weeks, it's fair to say that probably there is a little bit of fatigue coming in from news, coming from the trade tariffs situation. So, for the time being, I have to say that despite the real significant spike in volatility and huge volumes, we saw peaks in volume that exceeded 30% of the times in the first week of in the first couple of weeks of the second quarter. So, despite all of this, clients are quite calm and focus on managing within their asset allocation.
Is that volatility, that peak in volatility, behind us now? Do you think?
I don't think so. I think that, as I said, probably now there is a little bit of settling down. I think markets have found probably a new dimension in terms of where to reconsider things from, and now it's going to be depending on the developments on the tariff front. I think that uncertainty is there. It's very positive to see that there are ongoing discussions in terms of finding agreements. Having said that, if this goes on for too long, uncertainty has also a cost, and therefore probably investors and corporates will slow down their investment plans.
How are your private banking clients being impacted by tariffs?
For the time, our clients themselves directly in their asset allocation, just as a function of markets movements. Of course, we have a lot of clients who are also entrepreneur, business owners, and there it depends very much where I think the to won't be everybody loses or everybody gains. People will be winners and people will be losers.
In case you missed it on the opening trade.
The president is speaking to this part of our population that we know did not benefit from globalization. The IMF has been talking about those left behind for decades, and we haven't really seen anything to speak to that part of the population. That's who President Trump is speaking to. But we in Europe, we're seeing the same thing. We're just a few years behind. That part of the population who were left behind are voting, they're speaking, and we're going to unpick a lot of the fabric of the economy that we have seen for the last 20 years. Me as an investor, it's really thinking about, right, if we had 20 years of globalization that created winners and losers, who were they? And if this is going into reverse, maybe the past losers will be the winners, and maybe the past winners will be the losers.
Don't miss the opening trade, live every weekday.
We have the final Japan PMI numbers for the month of April. in at 48.7, again in contractionary territory below that threshold of 50. It's been below that threshold since June of last year, and of course we are now watching the repercussions on manufacturers, on exporters. We have seen export growth slowing down in the previous month as well. Today, of course, as you can see right there, is Bank of Japan Policy Day, Heidi. Not much expected in terms of rate changes given the trade uncertainty.
Such a tricky time for global central banks, Sherry. We're watching Chinese state media as well because they're saying there's been quickly reaching